Приветствую всех.
Greetings to all participants. Hello, dear friends. We are happy to see you here with us, all who could connect to the seminar and will participate. You know, every time when we organize our online seminars or online classes or international scientific research seminars, it is always a significant event for us. It is a great event because exactly at this moment, a certain transfer of energies occur. These energies that are all around in the space, they have a structure, properties, and qualities to connect people's thoughts wherever they are. And when we work with such difficult spiritual high material as the study of the secret doctrine, of course, it is clear that the energies of the space, they have a fiery nature, and this fiery energy can be felt so clearly. Now our video is quite about 20,000 visualizations for such a narrow category as theosophy. That's a lot. And, you know, the secret doctrine is not widely studied. Yet many people are trying to achieve to this knowledge and study the secret doctrine, and those who have acquired certain experience not just because they started earlier and they want to share their thoughts, their experience, their system, how to start it, in order to have an opportunity to talk in the space when the energies have the beginning, the penetration, uh, uh, communication, and can get back to them. And when it comes back, it happens that all the ethereal space acquires certain nobility by attracting the higher thought, because everyone who will talk today, who will present, all our speakers, our presenters who worked with the material, and those who will ask questions, of course, it is a great communication, and it is a great event for everybody, for everyone, uh, those who will visualize the video afterwards. Today we're working with our interpreters, Sergei Zetkin, Olga Tovchuk, and Ksenia Persova. Um, just not a long time ago, we had a technical meeting, and we had an understanding that it is not by chance that the interpreters come to work with us. Somehow they join us and they start to study the material together with us. We thought that our interpreters are a certain kind of theophanic mediators, because to bring the shape to the words and make it understandable. And we're working with difficult material, very thin fire energy, which is being formed. It does not have a shape, and it is not always easy to always find the right word which will convey the thought in the best way. We thank our interpreters, our applause to our interpreters. We hope that today our foreign participants and English-speaking listeners of our seminars will be able to understand this refined thought that every of our presenter wanted to convey. Dear friends, as you know, at the end of the seminar, we have direct communication, and you may share your questions through Q&A icon in the Zoom program, and we will be happy to answer them. So please do not hesitate to refer to our chat, share your questions, and we will read them and try to give exhaustive answers. So, dear friends, the 25th February of 2023, this event has happened, an event that even though it is a small group seminar, yet in the scientific world, in the world of culture, in the research informational space, it is an event, because every time when we organize our online seminars, a formation of new thought happens, new revelations, new insights. And this event is very important. And we congratulate all those who work with us to work on the formation of this thought to give it an impetus for movement. And today we're starting the greatest stanza, very beautiful one, a stanza that has a fundamental basis through all the secret doctrine in all three volumes, third stanza, third sloka. It has an incredible significance. And today I am all in anticipation about the thoughts that are going to be expressed today. And we hope that these thoughts will be connected in the united field where we will work for the well being, for the good of the whole humanity, because these energies work this way. Dear friends, as you know, every time, every Nidana that corresponds to the year and day where we are, where we work, uh, this is a unique nidana that will never happen again. This is that particular moment. And in order to understand the nidana's properties, it is very important because it gives certain kind of direction in order to understand with which energies we work today and we live today. So traditionally, I give the floor to Vladimir Vasilyevich Yary, psychologist and director of the Moscow School of Philosophy. Hello, dear friends. Once again, let us start to study the new combination of nidanas of today, the moment of our seminar. This is the era of the blue monkey. The era is the era of Satya Yuga in the small cycle. The small cycle of Satya Yuga. What does it provide us with? We become more perceptive, which means more educated, more cultural wise, according to the previous cycle or previous yuga. And Satya Yuga is about awakening of our consciousness. And with awakening starts purification and expansion, and also the refinement of our sensual nature as we perceive the reality. This is basically the essence of Satya Yuga. The beauty of the thought is to be manifested. That's why the thought as element or character gives the monkey its properties, and the monkey triggers the sense of beauty in the human. This is how Satya Yuga awakens our consciousness by the feeling of beauty, the century of the white dragon. Here you may see a very interesting connection. Here's that the white dragon is the century and the day of the white tiger today. The day of the white tiger uh, in the framework of the year of the black hare, the months of the black Taurus, and the week of the black dog. These three black principles defining Akasha, and Akasha symbolizes, first of all, our heart. It is very important to understand that the heart is the year, month, and week with their nidanas. The black hare, black Taurus, and black dog are in condensate of ether, the white energy, the ether, the sanctuary of the white dragon, and the day of the white tiger. Uh, it is a kind of an egg, a dot in the circle. This combination is very rare, yet it happens from time to time. But it always happens when a new level starts, a new circle starts, which requires more refined sense of to perceive the reality. Well, let us start with the shell of this so-called egg, the century of the white dragon and the day of the white tiger. The white dragon is the condensate of ether, which is ready to get awakened or to manifest. But to manifest what? What does it manifest? A new idea, new thought, new feeling. Thus, dragon manifests its wisdom, the wisdom as bodhicitta, as drops that purify our consciousness. This is the century. The day of the white tiger engenders it in us. But first of all, it awakens our consciousness. This is a kind of energy which will express this awakened consciousness. It is very important. And what does make this shell? The year of the black hair with its character and black energy or black element of akasha or water, the waters of space is concentrated in this our slumbering memory. And this slumbering memory through the nidana of hair, knowledge, brings us to the um, omnipresented knowledge. We want to know everything. How does it happen? By remembering. We should remember our gatherings from the jar of our heart. We should remember them all. But it is impossible to remember everything just at once. We have limitations of time in this world. That's why during all the year, day by day, we will refer to our memory and to extract it from our jar. And for this, we need the sense of knowledge. The next principle is the black Taurus. The black Taurus is the month that we live in, the whole month. There was a unique opportunity to implement our impetus towards ignorance. How can we manifest it? How can we implement it? By recognizing our ignorance. And then we will connect to the evolutionary program. Because when we recognized our ignorance, uh, our aspiration to ignorance, which has to get implemented as evolutionary impetus, is a great Maya, and it is necessary in order to let differentiation just to happen. When we recognize our ignorance, we start differentiation and we start to synthesize it, which means this state of cognitive possibility get awakens in us when we are able to understand the causes and consequences, or when we are able to unite the opposites, the spirit and the matter. Then we will have the move towards the mind, towards our reasonable nature, towards wisdom, which will be awakened by the energies of the black Taurus, because ignorance covers everything as a veil, just as Parabrahman is hidden behind the veils, and Adam Kadmon is concealed by the veils. This is how we have to implement this quality of us. The week is of the black dog, which symbolizes the firmness of our personality. And this firmness should be established in our intuition or the sense of knowledge. Yet, this firmness should affirm itself in the state or personal or individual qualities of the man. And as the dog by itself symbolizes the firmness of the personality, and this firmness should uh, uh, affirm uh, and should obey to its individual freedom, which brings the individual freedom of the personality. So there is a duality, and only the sense of knowledge may help in this duality. Again, it brings us to the understanding that the dog is in the constellation of Pisces, and in this constellation, Hierophantus of this constellation is the black goat, which means love. And as soon as personality starts to love the truth, then individuality will connect, will merge with the personality, and the personality will be able to manifest the firmness and the sense of knowledge according to the spirit of. So here are our nidanas, and the thought of the day is the following. Elena Petrovna Blavatsky provides us for meditation a specific thought in the Pearl of the East. The path of virtue lies in the renunciation of the seven great sins. So if we look at these sins, and there are seven of them, we will pay attention that in humanity, they are as seven whales reflected in the person, seven centers in a person, and every center has its sin because we are in the dual, we live in the dual world of duality. So we have this double snake along with our spine holding sushumna. One part is material, another part is spiritual. Two snakes. So let us have a look. What can we see out of this things? First of all, it's pride and wrath that are on our on the top of our head. And how can we win over them? By being reasonable and humble. The next is greed and jealousy. Then we have laziness, and we can win over it by work, by diligence. Then we have anger, which can be win over by love and fidelity. Then the greed can be won over by the generosity. The gluttony can and lust can be won over by honor. Uh, the gluttony can be won over by moderation. So all these sins may be won over, and of course, they correspond to musical notes to tune seven Sahasrara. Uh, the keynote of Ajna, Vishuddha, in the throat, Anahata is heart, Visushta, uh, soul, and Anahata Fa, Manipura is the third keynote, Svadhisthana is D note, and Muladhara is um, The first note. Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you very much for telling us about the nidanas that will not only direct us to the uniting thought, which we will come to in the end of our seminar, but also by the thank you for the drop of Batishita, or the drop of wisdom that you've mentioned, which is the wisdom of the fire of this space, that we will be transformed into prana. And we know that the cosmos condensates prana. And today is absolutely wonderful when the third stanza, third sloka corresponds to these energies, these nidanas, and this sevenfold which you have told us about in the first part of our seminar. Of course, it will provide its consequences because the basis of the sevenfoldness follows every person. Let today's drop of wisdom unite all our consciousness that will work to the creation of the highest thought. Dear friends, please welcome our dear friend from India, Mr. Ram Prakash, a member of the United Lodge of India. Ram Prakash, we are happy and ready to listen to your presentation.
Thank you. Good morning to all the participants of the Secret Doctrine Research Group. I'll be now sharing my understanding of verse 3 of stanza 3 of the first volume of the Secret Doctrine, Cosmogenesis. Let me first read the verse. It says, darkness radiates light, and light drops one solitary ray into the waters, into the mother deep. The mother shoots through the virgin egg. The ray causes the eternal egg to thrill and drop the non eternal periodical germ, which condenses into the world egg. This is what verse 3 of stanza 3 says. In the poem, the teacher says that the stanza 3 describes the reawakening of the universe to life after Pralaya. It is a stage of emergence of monads from their state of absorption in the One. Cosmic constructive powers, which we call as architects, builders, watchers, Sephiroth, etc., had not yet emerged. It is a stage of metaphysical abstraction. The abstract process of pre-cosmic formation of the non-eternal world egg in the bosom of the eternal mother substance called the virgin egg or the eternal egg is mentioned in the verse and in the commentary thereon. It is in the non-eternal world egg after it emerges from the eternal virgin egg that the Sephiroth of construction or Elohim, collectively called the creative logos or the third logos or Brahma, are hatched at the end of their gestation in it. Now, various terms are used in this verse. The terms used and the meaning given to them by the teacher needs to be understood. What are those terms? First, darkness. Second, light radiated from darkness. Third, one solitary ray of the light. Fourth, mother deep, the waters, the virgin egg, eternal, non eternal, periodical egg, the world egg. These are the terms used. Let's try to understand the import of these terms, what meaning they bear. Let's take up the first term, darkness. Darkness here obviously means the absolute, the unknowable, or Parabrahm. What first radiates from that is light. Now let's consider the next term, light. Light is said to radiate from darkness. What is light in the context of verse 3? First Logos is called light here. It is said to radiate from the unknown and not emanate. This is to be understood. First Logos is called light and is said to radiate and not emanate from the unknown. The teacher explains the difference between these two terms, emanation and radiation, in her answers to questions put to her by students, which are recorded in the Transactions of Blavatsky Lodge. I'm referring to the Transactions of Blavatsky Lodge of the Theosophic Company edition of Los Angeles. Now, the difference between the radiation and emanation, the two terms. The teacher has explained it. She says that there is a difference between these two terms. Emanation is a conscious act, but the unknown absolute can have no consciousness. It cannot act consciously because it is absolute. Otherwise, it would not be absolute. This is what the teacher says. Radiation is an unconscious act. Therefore, light is said to radiate from the unknown and not emanate from the unknown. I quote HVP's sentence, quote unquote, radiation can come from absolute, emanation cannot. That's what HVP says. The metaphysical difference between these two, emanation and radiation, is to be studied. Now let's take up the third term, one solitary ray of the light. Perhaps it implies that only one ray is shot forth from the unmanifested Logos, whereas the whole potentiality of it must remain unmanifested. It reminds one of the saying of Sri Krishna, Logos, in the Bhagavad Gita, in the 11th chapter, 42nd verse, in which he says, I quote, I established this whole universe with a single portion of myself and remain separate, unquote. Now let's consider the fourth term, eternal egg and non-eternal egg. The eternal egg seems to be Matripadma, Mother Lotus, mentioned in Shloka 3 of stanza 2. In it is contained the germ. When the solitary ray from the unmanifested Logos shoots through the germ, when the hour of primordial awakening had struck, it thrills, expands from within without, and from it drops non eternal egg, periodical egg, having flashed out from the central point. Now, again, I'm quoting from Transactions of Blavatsky Lodge, and HVP says, I quote, having flashed out from this central point and thrilled through the germ, the ray is withdrawn again within this point, and the germ develops into second logos, the triangle within the mundane egg, unquote. Emergence of the mundane egg, the primordial triangle, is the first stage of manifestation in which gestate the intracosmic creative powers, which in their unity is called the third logos or Brahma, the beginning of cosmic manifestation. So there's a clear line of demarcation is made between the pre-cosmic primordial differentiation out of time and space on the one hand, and the cosmic manifestation that begins in time and space on the other. A clear line of demarcation is made between these two stages of cosmic awakening after Pralaya. Thus, a clear metaphysical distinction between the eternal egg, that is Matapatma, and non-eternal periodical egg is to be understood. And this understanding is very vital for us to comprehend the subsequent verses, the meaning of the subsequent teachings in the stanzas of Dhyan. So, with this, I end my brief presentation. Thank you. Namaste.
Большое спасибо. Очень так.
Thank you so much. We are very happy to hear from you. Everything was very clear. Mr. Ram Prakash, thanks a lot. You know, while we were listening to you, just the thought occurred to us, the thought of how dense this condition of the germ becomes so that it turns into the world egg. It's a whole cycle. And within this race to become dense, there are many events, there are many actions that take place. And when we have such a research that was presented by Mr. Ram Prakash, it was a classical research that it went from one stage to another. And we looked at all the comments of the Dzyan book. And also it is related to what Blavatsky said and what the Blavatsky Lodge was published, Blavatsky Lodge book was published. All that gives us an opportunity to look at some of the ideas that enable us to give the form to the thought. And thank you so much for highlighting the difference between the emanation and the radiating of light. We can see very tiny differences that enable us to connect the dots. When the attention becomes more focused and when we can go into detail, we can also make the links better. Thank you so much. And now we invite the next speaker, Mr. Kolganov, PhD in philosophy, a professor of the Department of Philosophy of Moscow Aviation Institute. Mr. Kolganov, we give you the floor. I welcome all the participants of the seminar. Shloka 3. The figure of an infinite sphere, a circle, or an egg doesn't seem anything new. Moreover, the roots of this idea can already be found in the philosophers of antiquity. The fact that the unity resembles a sphere is the most perfect of geometric bodies. We find it in Parmenides' work. The first medieval book, which describes the beginning of everything as an infinite sphere, whose core is everywhere, and the periphery is nowhere, is a treatise by an unnamed author, the Book of 24 Philosophers of the 12th century, attributed to the great Hermes Trismegistus. Blavatsky commented on this symbol. If the three discrete degrees of existence can be imagined, according to the symbolism of all Eastern religions, contained in the ovum or egg, the name of the egg is Svabhavat, or all being on the manifested plane. This universe indeed has neither center nor circumference, but the individual and finite mind of man defines it in like manner, which is a natural consequences of the limitations of human thought. Thus, the infinite sphere appears as a symbol of God. The infinite sphere has no center. Its center is any point taken, which also forms another sphere. God is not the center of the infinite sphere. He is the sum of an infinite number of points. And at the same time, he is inseparably present in each. However, the fact that the infinite God is omnipresent also makes the created world itself infinite. In the Theogenesis, on the other hand, we find the following reference to the symbolism of the stans, the Book of Zion. It consists of stans that symbolically describe the world order, the hidden science. Only the devoted know how many of these stans are in the book. The 7 stans written in symbolic language form the basis of cosmogenesis. There are 7 stans of cosmogenesis, and there are 1,721 words in them. And Helena Petrovna explains in more than 250,000 words of the first volume of the Secret Doctrine. In order to interpret the symbolic language of the stans, Blavatsky uses the entire volume of knowledge known by that time and expounding it in the forms of social consciousness available to the reader of the 19th century, philosophical, religious, scientific, as well as mythological, trying to awaken the reader's intuition. What is the reason for this diversity of material presentation? Having a desire to awaken the reader's intuition and the hope of achieving an understanding of the language of symbols. As Dawa pointed out, until the ability to interpret symbols intuitively is acquired, serious progress in esotericism remains out of reach. Insight into certain fundamental truths of symbolism will assist the student in acquiring the ability to interpret. So the Book of Life is written in categories of symbols. God and the higher self speak in symbolic language. In order to better understand this shloka concerning symbols such as the egg, sphere, and circle, I think we should turn to the legacy of a scholar, cardinal, politician, founder of mystical pantheism, one of the greatest philosophers of the Renaissance period, and I'm talking about Nicholas of Cusa. The central problem of the philosophy of Nicholas of Cusa is the problem of the relationship between God and the world. Again and again, Nicholas of Cusa repeats Plato's concept of God as the beginning, middle, and ending of everything, and the whole process. In his major work on scholarly ignorance, the philosopher sought not to contrast God, the creator of the world, with his creation, as required by the Christian worldview, but to unite them. And this philosophy is based on the fact that God holds everything to himself, or rather in himself. Thus, God is not identified with nature, but the world and nature are contained in him, as they are in man. Nicholas of Cusa contrasted the self-assured scholastic knowledge of God and the world with the concept of scholastic ignorance, which gave its name to his most important philosophical work. Scientific ignorance is not a rejection of knowledge of the world and its creator. It's a concept associated with the inability to express the one in terms of formal logic. Scientific ignorance is a rejection of the positive theology that dominated the religious thought of the Catholics of the Middle Ages. He calls God, whom Nicholas of Cusa considered totally abstracted from the world of finite things, and is the greatest beginning of all, the absolute Maximus. God is the one and only beginning. It is impossible to attain full knowledge of God because of the overwhelming complexity of his nature. Increased knowledge will lead man only to much knowledge, but not to true knowledge. Nicholas of Cusa contrasts contemplation with inadequate knowledge, which makes it impossible to synthesize opposites. He describes this knowledge as intellectual contemplation or intuition, which makes use of an already unconscious level of the psyche. In the first volume of the Teachings of the Temple, we find the following words. It is virtually impossible to put a spiritual reality into words of any kind of language. And such realities can be grasped only through intuition, and even then, only partially, since intuition also has to express itself in ordinary words. In his teaching, the Cusa thinker assumes that there is a divine one, and that his creations are numerous, while other philosophers contrasted the one and the many. He insists on their unity. Having studied the writings of Pseudo-Dionysius, he comes to the idea of the unity of opposites, and in his major work, he defines the maximum. It is that which absolutely nothing can be greater than. But if he thinks of the maximum in this way, it cannot be less than itself. Consequently, the maximum is also something less than which nothing can exist. Consequently, the maximum coincides with the minimum, because the completeness of the maximum does not permit division, and the minimum is also less than nothing that can exist. If the absolute maximum contains everything, then the minimum also coincides with it. But the minimal is a unit, and therefore the maximum is a unit as well. Cusa, the citizen of Cusa, attributes divinity to the unit and regards it as the beginning of all beginnings. Here, the principle of coagulation and decomposition is applied to numbers. The unit expands into a multitude of numbers of things, and the numbers are rolled up into unity. For any number is 1, 2, 3, 10, and all. Any as a number is 1. The existence of God in the world is nothing less than the existence of the world in God. According to the second part of his statement, things and phenomena are considered only symbols of God. But if you turn to the first part, they are interesting in themselves, and often the same statement can be interpreted in both the first and the second aspects. For example, viewing the world as a sensuous God. In this view, the world and man are understood as fully immersed in the absolute. The philosophical conception of the world and man must then be built only on the basis of the idea of their complete unity with the absolute. Because of this would make it impossible to argue that the subject is opposed to the object, the conventional understanding of the process of cognition appears erroneous, or at least approximate. This leads us to the following conclusion. Through God's light is all our cognition, so that we do not really cognize, but rather He in us, or God in us, cognizes, and rational cognition turns out to be an auxiliary form, necessary only to prepare our consciousness for the special act of comprehending the absolute. The philosopher from Cusa develops the most important methodological principle of dialectics, or the unity of opposites in a single object. If we free the maximum and the minimum from the quantity, we find that they coincide. If we take a polygon and increase the number of its sides, then in infinity, this polygon coincides with a circle. In infinity, the opposites coincide. The one is everything. The one is identical to infinity. If the radius of a circle is infinite, then the circle is an infinite straight line. In such a maximal circle, the diameter becomes identical to the circle. Moreover, not only the diameter coincides with the circle, but also the center. Thus, the point and the infinite line represent the same thing. Since the minimum is the maximum, it is clear that the infinite unity is the coordination of all things. Similar is the case with a triangle. If one of its sides is infinite, then the other two sides are also infinite. Thus, it's proven that an infinite line is both a triangle, a circle, and a ball. If God unwraps the world, then man unwraps his image of the world by the power of his own mind. Man can do this only in contact with the natural world. Through intuition, man goes beyond the natural and comprehends the incomprehensible beyond the finite. And since the nature of things is infinite, man can know everything by comprehending only one thing. The principle of all in all supports the idea that finite things constitute a whole world reflecting the universe, and that each thing in its own may reflect the infinitive being. Every part of the infinite is finite, asserted the Cardinal of Cusa. He also understood that a maximally infinite and unified God was an interreligious concept inherent in the beliefs of all peoples, not just Catholics. The personality of Nicholas of Cusa did not go unnoticed by Blavatsky either. Thus, in volume 3 of The Secret Doctrine, she reveals the mystery of his life, and she says, as an example of an adept who took advantage of the first above-mentioned ability, or to choose another body after death, medieval Kabbalists point out a famous historical figure of the 15th century, Cardinal de Cusa. Because of his amazing devotion to esoteric studies and the Kabbalah, Karma took this suffering adept to the intellectual restoration and rest from the tyranny of the clergy in the body of Copernicus. Nicholas of Cusa applied the terminology and proofs of geometry along the lines of Plato and his school, in which it was applied to the study of philosophy. The mystical experience of Nicholas of Cusa during his voyage in 1437 demanded mathematical constructions for his transmission. He considered the resemblance of the mathematical figure to the absolute, seeing it as independent of matter, motion, and sensuality, making the abstraction of mathematical thought absolute. Mathematics made it possible to represent the infinite by finite figures, which should bring man closer to knowing the absolute. Nicholas of Cusa tried to justify not only the coincidence of an infinite number of geometric figures, but with any cardinal philosophy of Cusa constructs the concept of God and the world as a circle with an inner center, as being nowhere and everywhere at the same time. The cosmos is in man and man is within God. On prerequisites, the Cardinal of Cusa develops a doctrine of man, human cognition, and the relation between man and the absolute. Man is a synthesis of opposites. He is physically limited by spiritually infinite. However, in relation to God, man himself is still limited, although he is a spiritually infinite phenomenon. These opposites are removed and abolished in the God-man Jesus Christ. Then, if God contains everything in himself, spirit, nature, and through Jesus Christ, man also contains everything in himself. Himself as spirit, himself as nature, and through Jesus Christ he acquires God. The idea of man as microcosm in which the whole universe is reflected runs through the whole philosophy of the Renaissance. Man is a special microcosm because he has a consciousness that contains images of everything, including God. Man can be likened to God through the creative activity of his mind. Man is his mind. Complete perfection is inherent in humanity as a whole, not in individuals. As the cosmos in God, so the absolute nature of Christ is the coagulated state of human nature. The authors of the Temple Doctrine note, with an understanding of symbolism and the law of cycles, every event of individual, natural, or world importance, whether material or spiritual, can be safely predicted and therefore can be prepared for. By these words, I'd like to conclude my speech. Thank you for your attention. Sergey, thank you so much. It is a great research, and I think for many of you, it was new to find Cardinal of Cusa in the philosophical world. Of course, there's a very interesting connection, link, and I was inspired by the thought about the maximum and the minimum. It's the thought of the theosophic nature, and there was this connection that I was able to identify. There's a unified thought that can be found in many researches and many studies, and philosophy is a great science that is so good at connecting all those thoughts together. And of course, this word is of divine nature, and being able to find the essence in each notion when this philosophical mind is developed, it is really important. Such kinds of research give us not only an expanded information field, but also they amaze us that we can touch this material and be able to study this material. And every time at each seminar, in each shloka, in the speech of each participant, we can always find a new thought that is always amazing. The main purpose of the cosmic spatial energies, as they say, there's no passive beginning in the cosmos. Everything is interrelated. And it is the philosophy studies that links everything into a beautiful system. Thank you so much, Sergey Vitalyevich. You're always great at doing that, at showing that, and there are always unexpected studies from you, unexpected presentations and thoughts, and thank you for participating in our seminars and our work. And I'm sure there will be a lot of questions to you, and we'll get back to your speech at the end of the seminar. We'll get back to some of the statements that you made today during your presentation. Thank you so much. Thank you. Dear friends, we move on and we invite the next speaker, our great friend, our partner from Portugal, José Manuel Anocleto, the president of the Lusitanian Center for Cultural Unity, Portugal, Lisbon. We give you the floor. Thank you so much for being able to join us. We're happy to see you.
Good afternoon. I greet all theosophists and seekers of truth in fraternal attitude of harmony and group purpose for the good of all. I'm very grateful to the previous speakers because their talks were indeed very good, very interesting. Our collective study today focuses on sloka 3 of stanza 3 of the Book of Dzyan, the basis or one of the bases of the secret doctrine by Elena Petrovna Blavatsky. The text of the sloka is as follows. Darkness radiates light, and light drops one solitary ray into the waters, into the mother deep. The ray shoots through the virgin egg. The ray causes the eternal egg to frill and drop the non-eternal periodical germ, which condenses into the world egg. We must keep in mind that this stanza, like the previous one, refers to the transition from the unmanifested to the manifested, from absoluteness or a non-totality to conditioned existence, to an existence that, therefore, is relative, even if immense. As we can see, darkness is enclosed in inverted commas. It is the only word in this sloka where this happens. There is a deep but clear reason for this. The word darkness can have a very negative connotation associated, for example, with evil and dark magic. This, however, is not the sense in which it appears in these and previous stanzas of the Book of Dzyan. Darkness here means absolute light. However, for what is relative, as is our understanding, and the material luminous phenomenon, it looks like darkness, an unfathomable abyss. Remember the Rig Veda or the biblical Genesis. Indeed, the relative cannot comprehend the absolute, and vice versa. HPB expresses this in different writings. For example, in the Key to Theosophy she held, absoluteness is unconsciousness, only to our finite consciousness. Verily, may we paraphrase verse 5 in the first chapter of St. John and say, and absolute light, which is darkness, shine in darkness, which is illusionary material light, and the darkness comprehend it not. This absolute light is also absolute and immutable law. Whether by radiation or emanation, we need not quarrel over terms. The universe passes out of its homogeneous subjectivity to the first plane of manifestation, of which planes there are 7, we are taught. Although in this excerpt, the discussion as to whether it is preferable to radiate or to emanate is renounced. In the Book of Dzyan and in the Secret Doctrine, as well as in other writings, it is clear which concept and respective word is preferable, and the reason for it is even explained. For instance, when questioned, where is the difference? The difference between radiation and emanation. HPB answered, enormous. Radiation is the unconscious action, so to say, of something from which something radiates. But emanation is, well, it's suppose already something that emanates out of itself consciously. Now, radiation can come from the absolute. Emanation cannot. Nothing can emanate from it. On the other hand, in the Blavatsky collected writings, volume 11, we can read, and the light shined in the darkness, and the darkness did not comprehend it. In the Secret Doctrine, this darkness is taken as synonymous with pure spirit and light as typifying matter. Darkness, in its radical metaphysical basis, is subjective and absolute light, while the latter, in all its seeming effulgence and glory, is merely a mass of shadows, as it can never be eternal, and is simply an illusion or Maya. Are light and darkness in this verse used in the same sense? Or does it mean that this life, which is a potency of the Logos, is regarded by men as light, whereas that which is higher than the light, viz. The Logos, or to them darkness, is the real light? Darkness comprehended not, then means that absolute spirit did not comprehend or understand this elusive light. This Logos, the essence of the Logoi, was in the beginning, in Mula Prakriti, identical with Parabrahman. And the light of life, as one essence, shined in darkness, and the darkness comprehended not. Neither does this essence of the Logos comprehend Parabrahman, nor does Parabrahman comprehend the essence. They are not on the same plane, so to speak. Then the darkness, the absolute light, radiated the Mayavic light. Let us remember that Maya has in itself a creative function, namely from the point of view of the Vedanta or of the Shivaism of Kashmir. Or, from another point of view, the darkness has repelled the light because it cannot comprehend it, that is to say. Although the relative cannot exist without the absolute, it is its negation. And only when repelled can it express itself and lead from absolute unconsciousness to the consciousness of relation and to self-consciousness. And the germ that dwelleth in darkness awakes to a new Manvantara, because only by somehow denying absoluteness can it bring into existence the worlds and the myriad of beings apparently or tenuously differentiated that inhabit and constitute them. We quote again from the Blavatsky collected writings, volume 11, now on page 142. We do not want an impersonal deity, they tell us. A negative symbol such as non-being is incomprehensible to being. Just so. Then the light drops one solitary ray into the waters, into the mother deep. Excuse me. Why a solitary ray, we may ask? Because there it is still on the plane of unity, although the unity in the proto-manifestation. That ray comes from the domain of the first logos, paradoxically but significantly called the unmanifested logos. We say paradoxically because logos is the propeller of manifestations and the conscious force of manifestation, or in other words, it is consciousness in manifestations, and Daivi Prakriti, or Fawat, its light and its force. So, unmanifested is a paradox when we talk about logos, even the first logos. The ray which Pythagoras called the monad descended from no place, aloka, like a falling star through the plains of non-being into the first world of being, and gave birth to number one. Nevertheless, when the solitary ray enters the depths of the mother, this is already in the transition from the first logos to the second logos, or semi-manifested logos. The waters of space refer to the Akash in its higher sense, the Ma-Akash, the power of space, the background or canvas on which is printed the ideation of the whole cosmos, is the universal space, which is the incessant sound vibration that, by condensation, by densification, gives rise to the forms of our world. The Mother Deep alludes to 26, the Mother Deep alludes to Mula Prakriti, the proto-mother of all, the pre-cosmic root of substance, matter, nature, and synonymous with Pradhana, Avyakta, and also Akasha. The waters and depths of the mother are the chaos, non-cosmos, or primordial abyss. Although on another theme, a sentence by Gottfried de Pulucker may apply, synthesizing much of the fundamental. There were the celestial waters, meaning thereby what the Greeks call chaos, or cosmic matter undeveloped. The ray, Fawat, already in proto-manifestation, or Daivi Prakriti, shoots through the virgin egg, causing it to thrill. In fact, Daivi Prakriti, Fawat, is the very mercent force of the cosmos from the primordial waters. The virgin egg, as Elena Blavatskaya wrote, is the microcosmic symbol of the macrocosmic prototype, the Virgin Mother. In one sense, abstract eggness, or the power of becoming developed through fecundation, is eternal and forever the same, and, of course, is the eternal egg mentioned in the sloka. When it is impregnated to become a manifested cosmos, it remains immaculate in its receptive nature, It is here that one can truly and authentically speak of the Immaculate Conception, not in reveries of anthropomorphic theologies. The fertilization of the virgin egg gives rise to the non-eternal periodical germ, which becomes later the mundane egg that contains in itself, when it emerges from the set symbol, the promise and potency of all the universe. The Secret Doctrine, Volume 1, pages 64 and 65. Let us recall here the symbols of Hiranyagarba, golden egg or universal germ, referred to in texts of Hinduism, notably in the Rig Veda, the Upanishads, the Puranas, the laws of Manu, i.e. both Shruti and Smriti, of the egg of the world, the silver egg which Nyx lays in the Orphic cosmogony, of the cosmic egg from which Ra proceeded in the wisdom of ancient Egypt, of the egg from which Pangu proceeded in Chinese mythology, etc., etc. Such illustrates the universal value of this symbolism. This sloka, like the others in the same stanza, refers to the awakening or reawakening of the cosmos, of a particular cosmos. In the following stanzas, the unfolding of its manifestation is explained. However, before sound, there is silence. Before light, the darkness of the great and manifested. Before the movement, the immobility or absolute movement, in which everything is complete. But the great law that governs everything determines that, once again, movement, relative movement, will take hold of everything and carry all beings subject to karma on the journey that will lead them to new conquests and new freedoms. Such a journey will have many contingencies. However, spiritness is fleeting, but compassion is everlasting. Pain is temporary, but love has no end. Illusion is transient, but reality is eternal. All universal manifestation proceeds cyclically. Eras succeed one another in an ordered rhythm, in accordance with the cadenced flow of cosmic energy. Not that we do not proclaim the eternal return, but the return to the eternal, so to say. Not death, but the transmutation of desire. Not ostracism, but the spiritualization of the intellect. Not contempt, but the salvation and glorification of matter. Relatively, there is no matter without spirit, and no spirit without matter. Dualism leads to monism, which is the understanding of the reality and glory of the One. In the lap of the Divine Mother, countless myriads of seeds take shelter. Each one of these seeds, in which the forgetful macrocosm has enclosed itself, will one day become a creator, between commas, of a universe in which countless other seeds will germinate. How extraordinary is the epic of the cosmos. thank you for your attention, for your kind attention. And I apologize for my voice is not very well. Um, I'm in the end of illness, so uh, I apologize for that.
Дорогой Хосе, огромное спасибо.
Dear Jose, thank you very much. Thank you again, and to wish you to reestablish and get better soon. Thank you very much for your being able always to find the forces to follow our rhythm and to provide this rhythm with your wonderful life energy. You always let us see additional scientific side of the stance of Stoker and all the notions that you are talking about. They get alive with your understanding, with your energy. And you would have a feeling when you're talking about logos and the other notions like Asha, Mula Prakriti, Alaya, Parabrahman, Aloka, Fahad, or Manada. It feels like we do not even need translation. You convey your words so clearly, so we don't even need interpreters to understand it, as if we were hearing and understanding what you wanted to tell us through your heart, warmed understanding and admiration with this beauty that you convey. Thank you very much, our dear friend. Dear friends, dear participants, thank you very much. Please don't forget that we have Q&A section and we will be happy to answer them. I see that we start receiving questions and in no time the moment will come when we will be able to answer them. Please do not disconnect because all the speakers, all scientific research group participants will be happy to answer them and clarify them with their own understanding. Dear friends, of course, we prepared our own presentation where we try to precise all those unmanifested states and shapes and put them into the objects of geometry, numbers, inner understanding, so that we could unite uh, the terms seemingly understandable, seemingly clear that are in the comments of Helena Petrovna Blavatsky. And the most important, as our dear friend Mr. Anakleta mentioned, it is not an eternal coming back, but we are coming back to eternity. So every speaker, every presenter gives us their thoughts so that we can get back to the eternal, to the higher. Let us share how we are going to do it. It's our vision. Here we go. Third stanza, third sloka. Darkness radiates light, and light drops one solitary ray into the mother deep. The ray shoots through the virgin egg. The ray causes the eternal egg to thrill and drop the non-eternal germ, which condenses into the world egg. A critical point is that darkness does not become light in this concept. It does not transfigure, but darkness already radiates light. Since the movement has begun, darkness is static. The light shows movement, and this is the ray. That is, from the source, which is darkness, the movement of light began, with the ray dropped by the light in this moment. Why does darkness radiate light? Radiation is always a power, the power of darkness as a source of the power of light. When does the light drop the ray? Light drops the ray when the mass of light is equal to the mass of the ray. That is, they're equal. Therefore, this ray is solitary because it has a force equal to the mass of light or the entire space that is starting the movement at this moment. This is the state of the unity of three, which means light, third stanza, third sloka, The ray, thus answers the slogan 3 and 3. It's their state of the unity, and altogether they give the number 6, the 6 in 1, and 1 or solitary. When merging, they fall together in this trinity and they become 7. A solitary ray falls into the mother's deep, not just into the bosom of the matter, but precisely into the depth. That is, by the force of penetration, it reaches the germ in its impetuosity and shoots through it. The first key point, the germ, rests in the depths, and in order to reach it, this instantaneous fusion is necessary. This power of aspiration and a change of state is necessary when the ray falls or the light drops it. The state of unity of 3, light and ray, they're merging, they are falling, and become 7. Cosmos arising from and within the boundless space. How can we understand it? Oh, from and within. From its light, it's threefoldness, and within it is the ray, its threefoldness. Let us have a look how this mutual penetration happens from within and inside the cosmos or this boundless space. The comist Tzian says that the virgin feminine origin is the space. The virgin egg is the dot in the circle. The vertical line is the first, the creator of the masculine principle, and the light is the first unmanifested logos, which is dropped into the mother's deep. The key point, the solitary ray falling into the mother deep, can be taken as meaning the divine thought or mind fertilizing chaos, which means the ray is mind fertilizing chaos. But what for? In order to manifest or take shape, acceptable. What is the acceptable form for this action? It is the form or shape of the future man. The ray shoots through the virgin egg and causes the eternal egg to thrill. It drops the germ. But it is not eternal. It is periodic. Of course, this ray is of white color. It's perfect, ideal. It's we might say absolute. And later on, 7 prismatic rays going from it, and after the end of this period, they merge into one. The ray itself is revealed in connection with the triangle. Have a look at the planes of the existence. The triangle is the first perfect geometric figure. The ray descending from a local or no place gives birth to the number 1. Then, branching off to the right, it produces the number 2. Then it turns, forming the baseline and generates a number 3. There, it ascends again to the number 1 and disappears into the realms of non-being. The key point, the triangle, is the first differentiation, but all its sides are drawn by one solitary ray, one solitary movement, because the darkness radiates light. The light drops a solitary ray into the mother deep. The ray shoots through the virgin egg. Thus, the virgin egg has the quality of differentiation, so it is not eternal but periodic. The virgin egg, ovum, is an egg, or being an abstraction of all the eggs. As a translation, ova, or power developing through fertilization, is eternally and always the same. And just as the fertilization of an egg takes place before it falls out, so then non-eternal periodic germ, which later becomes a world egg and symbolism, contains in itself, when it arises from the symbol, the hope and power of the entire universe. Hence, the key point, fertilization of the germ has taken place, and it has become the hope and power of the entire universe. That is, the egg, mundane egg. The golden egg demonstrates this the power of universe in its sevenfoldness, was surrounded by seven elements, out of which four have already been manifested. And here there is a little point. We have ether, fire, air, and water. They are manifested and three were concealed. In Ahamkara, all elements were mentioned without precise and three last ones. Let us have a look so that we understand it better. So we have four elements: first, second, third, and fourth: ether, water, air, and fire. And there are also four races which correspond to them. There are four circles that the Earth goes through, four bodies of the consciousness, physical plane, physical body, and emotional, astral, and mental. And three last ones. What are they? They are elements number 5, 6, and 7. Do you understand? There is no earth here because usually we have water, air, fire, and ether, and earth, and as a number 5. But in this concept, the thought is completely different. The earth takes the first ether as the highest principle of this fire. Then there is air and water. You see, the gradation is different, and three elements which were not manifested. Also, the races have not been manifested yet. They have not yet been seen. Also, the three circles that our Earth will go through, and Manas, Buddhi, and Atma, three thin bodies of the consciousness. The eternal egg, or in the state of Laya, or the 0 point preceding differentiation. The ray causes the eternal egg to thrill and drops the germ, with condenses into a world egg. Then the virgin egg, after being penetrated, has become germ. This is the microcosm of the symbol of the macrocosm, or chaos, and the dot in the egg, or potentially abstract triangle, or unmanifested or perfect triangle, is the point in the mountain egg. The second ray goes back in order to emanate the third ray, the point of coming back in the center, or the germ. At this point, fertilization occurs and the third ray will go down. We can see it on the scheme. The key point, the branching of the ray beyond the circumference, is revealed by the necessity of the law of manifestation. It is the combination of two opposite forces for fertilization of the germ: external force and an internal force. They are like masculine and feminine energies, and the merging of these forces will give the third, which is the fourth force. With further differentiation, it condenses into the world egg, which is sevenfold, like the world. Their combination gives the scheme of the mountain egg the symbol of the world, which is sevenfold. The creator of the masculine principle comes from the feminine principle, or immaculate truth fertilized by the ray. The radii, as Helena Petrovna writes, are directed from the thinker in all directions. The centers are everywhere, and the circle is nowhere. The idea, of course, is about differentiation in the space. Then the circumference that was defined will progressively disappear, and we will see many centers and many radii that are directed from one center to all directions. And this idea per se, of course, is an abstraction, a symbolic way of expression. Nevertheless, it is a true symbol because it presupposes the idea of infinity as an infinite circle. Let us have a look how this itinerary occurs. The divine thought as the first unmanifested logos. Second logos, the ray. And the third logos, which means we see the divine thought becomes cosmos. The cosmos is the fertilized egg because it perceives nature, but at the same time remains immaculate or boundless. The emblem of eternity is a snake eating its tail. As Elena Petrovna says, it's the secret of self-birth. Gave birth to itself from itself biting its tail. The process of evolution of the cosmos is accomplished thanks to heat, moisture, and the life of the creative spirit. And this case, we see that the heat at the beginning, the moisture as the space where this heat goes. As a result, we have a ray, which is the creative spirit and the life of the creative spirit, or the life of the germ, where the future monad will start its movement. We can consider it according to the scheme. Another mystical symbol is Ouroboros, is an ancient mystical symbol that, through the figure of a snake or dragon eating its own tail, depicts the concept of eternity. Uh, and Helena Petrovna tells about it in her comments to this sloka. The image of the Ouroboros, so the form of a circle in semiotics, the science of science, symbolizes the constant evolution and movement of life. In addition to other meanings, such as, it is very important, is self-fertilization, resurrection, creation, destruction, and renewal. So, the conclusion of the whole stanza third sloka, the thrill that had hitherto touched the all space has now reached the eternal egg, which is concentrated infinity to the circumference, the eternal egg, or the place where fertilization of the germ will begin. As soon as a space is formed ready to receive the ray, and the ray, which means three forces, penetrates the virgin egg, reaches the germ, and it occurs only when the two are fused together. It becomes the first world. The world egg is 3 and 3, and it becomes sevenfold, merging into this one point of the former germ, which has differentiation up to sevenfold. And we see in the center of the sixth ray star the light and ray merge together this egregor of the power of universe. So the results, when we said that Ouroboros has another point to it, self-resurrection, to creation, destruction, renewal, the thought came that because Elena Petrovna mentions in this sloka to give the following um, definition. The darkness radiates light, self-fertilization, and light drops one solitary ray into the waters, into the mother deep, resurrection. The ray shoots through the virgin egg, creation. The ray uh, triggers the thrill into the eternal egg, destruction, and it drops the non-eternal germ, which condenses into the world egg, renewal. So, dear friends, thank you very much for your reactions, for your attention. And now we would like to hear the feedbacks of the scientific research group members who are here with us today. And we give the floor to PhD in physics and mathematics, the professor of High Physical Engineering School, St. Petersburg Polytechnical University, Mr. Rashupkin. Sergey Pavlovich, please, the floor is yours, your comments.
Сегодняшним спикером. Слушаем вас. Санкт-Петербург,
Please
Россия.
share your feedback. St. Petersburg, Russia. Sergei Rashupkin. Good afternoon, dear colleagues. Can everyone hear me? Yes. I just wanted to give a very quick comment on the theosophic notions that were voiced today with the notions that exist in contemporary physics. First of all, I'd like to say that from the standpoint of view of contemporary physics, light has no mass, but it has energy. As for the emanation and or radiation. These two terms were used by Blavatsky. I believe that these two notions can be related to the physical understandings from the standpoint of view of physics, and it was voiced by Einstein. There is the spontaneous emanation and the forced emanation. The forced one is the emanation that we see in laser. So we increase the amount of energy, and then this energy is emanated in the form of a ray. This forced emanation, I believe, can be connected or referred with the emanation notion. It is a conscious action. And also there is a spontaneous emanation, which takes place in regular situation when there are lamps around us. The photons of various frequencies create this emanation. So these are the comparisons, the links that we can make with the emanation term used by Blavatsky. And finally, this stanza and this shloka are very interesting because we talk about the periodic egg and the infinity. There is a multidimensional space according to physics, and according to that, there are multiple universes. From the standpoint of view of theosophy, we can say that there was this periodic egg, there was Pralaya, then Mahamanvantara takes place, and after that, the universe with a capital U is created, and it differentiates into multiple universes. And as a result, there are multiple universes in the physical plane. This is one of the explanations. And this explanation is agreed upon by physicists. But there is also another explanation, this periodic egg. There can be multiple periodic eggs created during the existence of this differentiation process. And there is also another point of view. Everything that was described by the secret doctrine describes only our huge universe. But consciousness and mind can develop in the ways that are unknown to us. Thank you. Sergei Pavlovich, thank you so much for your comment. Thank you for your feedback. And I'd also like to jump into the conversation. We are in the time of the universe when the consciousness has not yet appeared, so it's unconscious universe. The cosmic laws, the unified spatial laws, the great laws, they exist. In this concept, the mass of light exists only because it's unconscious. It's the expansion of the volume of light that is expanded in the whole volume of space. It's not the mass that is described in the physics of the material world. There was no form at that time. There was no formed material, but the law was already placed, and it was at the unconscious level. And when we talk about the mass of light and the mass of ray, and they became equal in their threefold nature, they became each other, and only then it became possible to reach this germ, to give the germ the power for the future differentiation. The Kogan, they act the same way. There are three unmanifested planes, the higher planes of non-forms. The consciousness does not exist there yet. Blavatsky says that in cosmos, in the atom, everything has its own consciousness, but we know that once the consciousness appears, the consciousness of human beings that can divide this unified essence, only then the mass and the time is created. I have only one comment. Contemporary physics does not know other notions of mass. Mass is a very interesting characteristic, inertiality, gravitation. But if in theosophy we introduce the notion of mass, we need to be very careful, otherwise we wouldn't be understood. Thank you. We're not trying to be understood by physicists or by science. It is science that needs to understand us and that needs to start studying the sacred doctrine. It's not us who are moving towards them. They should be moving towards us. There's a big difference. Now we give the floor to the member of the Scientific and Research Group, Micheline Foster, member of the USA California Theosophy Group. If you have comments, we will be very happy to hear from you.
Good. I was very interested in the comments between the secret doctrine and the physics. I think as human beings, we can only see the universe from the perceiver's viewpoint. Whoever, each of us has our own perception of the universe itself. Light, they say, has no mass, except it has a mass that we don't understand because it has a mass of consciousness itself. And everything has its own perceivable essence, but it depends upon who's looking and how they are, how they have become aware of what they see. The perceiver is the one that can see, but the difference between the neophyte and the master looking at the same article would be complete difference between what we would see as perhaps nothingness or absolute nothingness, whereas the master could see through it and see another level of something within the nothingness. So it's very interesting to watch. We're growing as humanity, we're growing as science, we're growing as the secret doctrine studiers ourselves, and each of us grows in our own way. And it's the beauty of the blending of all of it eventually that we can see each other and see the truth. And then, poof, the truth will change to another level of consciousness, and so will we, and we'll start all over again. Thank you.
Дорогая Мишелина, огромное
Dear
спасибо.
Micheline, thank you so much. It's
Thank
great
you.
to be in touch and always great thoughts from you. We're very happy to see you today. Dear friends,
you.
we have received questions, and the first question goes to Jose Manuel Anacleto. I hope that you're still in the Zoom meeting. The single ray, the question is, the single ray exists, and if the single ray exists in a human being, what can it be compared to? The single ray in a human being.
I think what is the solitary ray in the human being by analogy? I think it's the Suchatman that comes from the monadic essence, and that passes through the auric egg and collects all the 7 principles, the 7 human principles. Is Atman or Paramatman are manifested in some way, and from it comes that solitary ray. And I think the better analogy in the human being is the Suchatman, the thread that comes from Atman, from the monadic essence.
Господин
hope to be
Анаклета, огромное спасибо.
Mr. Anacleto, thank you so much. Of course, I agree with you. The single ray in a human being is monada, because it's the only one, and it has this eternal, infinite light that helps this human being to go through various manifestations. Indeed, it has the name. The Sutra Atma is the name of this ray. Another question. The question goes to Mr. Kolganov. Sergei Vitalyevich will give you the floor. The question is, the first logos, does it have the essence? And if it does, then why? Well, in this case, in order to talk about the essence of the first logos, we need to have a form in order to identify this essence. As far as I understand, it's very difficult to talk about form in this case. It's rather a lack of form at the initial stage. That's why the definition of negative nature would be reasonable here. It's neither that nor this. Thank you so much. This question regarding the essence, if we know what the first logos is, it wasn't identified in the question whether it's manifested or manifested logos. If it's the first shloka, it's light. Does light have essence? Yes, it does, because it is going to be manifested in the future. The cause of manifestation is always the essence. If we have the light of the unmanifested logos, and then we have the manifested logos, then it means that this essence has this characteristic of transmitting the core meaning. This is the cause of the manifestation. The cause, indeed, I agree with you, but it's very difficult to determine this cause. If we look at the comments by Blavatsky to Secret Doctrine, she says that Logos 1 is the unmanifested potentiality. The whole notion of potentiality is very complex. Unmanifested potentialities is even more complex. That's my point of view. And I'd like to add, it's the essence of non-essence. It's the light. If we perceive it this way, if we look at it from the philosophic point of view, then we'll see that it's the nature of the absolute mind, light, that is. But starting from this first logos, from the potentiality, we can identify all the upadhas. I would imagine it this way, just a mirror. Thank you. Thank you so much. I'd also like to add, after studying the comments to Secret Doctrine and continuing the discussion about this shloka, Helena Blavatsky says that under the material, under the matter, we understand not the matter. The ego consists of undifferentiated matter, but by matter, Blavatsky means atoms, and atoms are not the physical atoms that exist in nuclear physics, but these are the atoms that are non-destructible initial atoms or points that develop further as divine units. These are monadas. The matter itself, according to Blavatsky, consists of these points or monadas. She says they are atoms, but of course these are not the the atoms in physics. These are the points of manifestation. You're completely right. Thank you so much for your comment. Someone got inspired by your comments. How can a virgin egg be differentiated? According to comments to Secret Doctrine, Shloka 3, stanza 3 is the world of non-forms. Sergey, do you have the answer? Well, there is a difference. When we talk about the world egg, then we talk about the initial non-differentiated matter. Once we start talking about the virgin egg, in this case, it's the first stage of differentiation. Although the difference between the world egg and the virgin egg is very small. Yes, I agree with you. There are formulas that function well, and we are within the third stanza. So there are three components that we need to have in our mind: the phenomenality, the potentiality, and the third one. If we follow this analogy, we'll always be able to find place for the virgin egg, for the eternal egg, and for the world egg. Thank you. Well, an idea just came to my mind regarding this question: how can a virgin egg be differentiated? There are various stages of differentiation. There is an internal and there is an external differentiation. The virgin egg is differentiated, and the virgin egg becomes the germ. It changes its state. And this is the differentiation from within. And when the germ is differentiated and becomes the world egg, it's a completely different state. We have the question to Mr. Anacleto. Jose, we hope you're still with us. What is the role of the thrill in the eternal egg?
Well, I think the role is to reawakening to objective life. It's like putting an end to an only sleeping state, to a state of wake up to objective manifestation. Sorry, I was kept by surprise. I was surprised by the question. I didn't expect. Is the better I can answer now, but I think it's this.
Большое спасибо, Хосе.
Thank you so much, Jose.
Thank
I
you.
think it's very close to the voice of silence. This thrill, in future, it will be the phenomenon of music of spheres. So the cause of sound will be built by this vibration. Thank you. And I have a thought regarding this. What role thrill does play in internal egg? It's like when the thrill is penetration of the spatial fire, which fills the whole space with its force, and it starts to vibrate. And then this vibration resounding as prana or psychic energy. This is life, and the thrill is revivification of space. And the power, its power is limitless. And so we can think about regarding this. And we have another question to Vladimir Vasilyevich. Is it possible to associate a virgin egg with open heart? I think it's possible. Thank you. Thank you so much for all your questions. We have some questions in WhatsApp, a couple of questions. Maybe we haven't answered all the questions. Definitely we'll answer all of them in Theosophical quiz, which will be issued a bit later, because this quiz is devoted to your questions. And we have another question now, which we would like to discuss now. Why this germ is not eternal? And will it become eternal in future? Once more. Who has any ideas? So the question which was answered regarding virgin egg, it differentiates when it becomes the germ. So this germ appears not always. It appears when fertilization takes place. So two forces are required for this. And two forces need some period. And it takes place at the moment when periodicity is manifested. So that's why the germ is not eternal, but periodical. Because we are talking about eternal germ, then we should talk about eternal egg. Mr. Anakleta, did you have any comment?
I agree with what is answered. I think it's just that.
Спасибо большое. Послушаем Сергея Витальевича. Сергей
Thank you
Витальевич,
so much. Now we are listening to Sergei Vitalyich. I think the germ is not eternal because it's a new combination. It's individuality. It's a new combination of limitless Laya centers, and that's why it's unique. Yeah, good idea. Very nice approach. Maybe here I will speak about time. In this sense, the potentiality is built, potentiality of time. It was talked about Kala and Khandakala, eternal and time. Maybe periodicity means that. Thank you. And last question for today. All other questions will leave for Quizzy. The question is, what is the duration of fertilization stage? How much does it take in terms of time? Fertilization happens momentarily. There was no time at that moment. That's why it was momentary. Thank you. If someone else has any ideas, please raise your hand. What is the duration of fertilization stage? I think in this period when it took place, when virgin egg became egg, because that can appear only after fertilization, but this effect, which has the causal nature, and it will repeat in many cycles, in many evolutions of conscience. So this is the great cause of creation of the world, and it will be done by means of this law. So the stage of fertilization is eternal. we can say, until the moment when a human will not fertilize its own mind with the reason and heart energy and becomes spiritual person, then fertilization ends. And most important, that this takes place momentarily, like creativity in a man is kind of takes a moment. And I would like to end this seminar today with the idea about perception. The effect of perceiving the world, moves the person to become a spiritual one. What is the force which cannot make errors? And only this psychic energy doesn't allow a person to make mistakes while cognizing, while perceiving the world. That's why this psychic energy should be accepted and follow it, never betraying it. So I think the main event which took place in third stanza, third sloka, this is perceiving force without mistakes, which brought to the effect of fertilization, which later becomes jiva for heart, prana, jiva. So this effect is without mistakes, without making mistakes while perceiving the world. And now we live in such period of events which flow in mass in each person, in each life, starting from last year, 2022, and even from 2017, I think fertilization at last started of the psychic energy of a person. When psychic energy started to influence with great energy each conscience, both unconscious and conscious. And while studying such books like Secret Doctrine, we can start to approach this. And talking about psychic energy, we can say also that the influence is through spatial psychic energy. It requires from a person mutual connection, so that human psychic energy to start communicating with higher spiritual energy, and then the new generation, new race will appear. And when it happens, then the spirit can influence the space. And we wish to everyone who was at the seminar to see how the spirit plays in space. Thank you so much for being with us. Our seminar came to an end, and we are finishing on such a note that the main condensation is the cosmic condensation, when cosmos condensates prana and plays on the currents of space, and only higher thought can play on the thoughts of space. That's why we are opening our hearts. Then that's why we are fertilizing our mind with higher energies. Only then each human becomes sevenfold. And we wish everyone to see one's way joyful and easy despite all obstacles, because everything is evolution, everything passes and some new starts. Thank you for being with us. Next seminar will have 16th of March. Please get connected. We'll be together. We'll live through those higher thoughts, because those energies will not be exhausted, never. They cannot be destroyed. They have their duration. light and love.
Всего доброго. Всего доброго. Спасибо. До свидания. Огромное спасибо спикерам.
Thank you to the speakers. Thank you to translators and technical support. Thank you. All the good. Be in contact. Get in touch. Leave your contacts.
The Secret Doctrine by Blavatsky. Dedicated to all true Theosophists. Book of the Third Millennium.
Blavatsky only knew